Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. This is the last game on our Zelda Game & Watch, unless you want me to talk about Vermin, the Game & Watch minigame with Link's head plastered on top of it. So let me know in the comments if you're interested to hear my thoughts about the really basic game known as Vermin. Now, this is objectively the worst version of Link's Awakening. There are three different versions for this game. The original that we played, and this is for the original Game Boy. There is a remastered of some sort. It basically adds color with an additional dungeon that is all the puzzles around it revolve around colors. And then there's the Switch remake of this game that came out just a couple years ago. So I have played through the Game Boy DX color version and the Switch remastered version, but I've never played through the original version before. So that's why I'm saying like objectively, but you might be quite nostalgic about that kind of a Game Boy color palette. So as for the plot for this one, I believe this is the same Link from The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and the Oracle games, but don't quote me on that. I think this isn't this Link's first Zelda game. Basically, he is on a raft on the ocean and he gets shipwrecked and washes ashore this mysterious Koholint island. And the only way for him to escape this island is to wake up the mysterious windfish that is trapped in an egg. And so to wake up this windfish, he has to find all 8 instruments in the 8 separate dungeons and play the special song in order to wake up the windfish. Now, as you are playing along this game and you are gathering up these instruments, you start to hear these hints and tips suggesting that all may not be as it appears and there might be some repercussions to waking up the windfish. I'm not sure like how much I should reveal here or should keep spoiler free because this is a super old game, but then there was this whole remake, so I'm just going to leave the plot line right there. But I really do like the plot of this game actually, and I love the implications and mystery behind this whole process of waking up the windfish. You even have this little owl, just like an Ocarina of Time, that will kind of give you point you in the right direction towards where the next instrument is and what you need to do in order to fulfill your quest. In this game, Link has his signature spin attack that wasn't featured in the first 2 games for the Zelda Game & Watch, the first Zelda and Zelda 2. I think this game came out after Ocarina of Time, so it might have taken a couple of the mechanics from that game and brought them here into the 2D space. Link does not always have his shield up. You have to manually equip the shield and hold it up, and this is another one of those just tedious things that because of the hardware that this game was on, you only have 2 buttons to equip your items to, and one of them is usually going to be linked to your sword. So in order to swap out your item, you have to pause, go change your item, and then unpause, and then use the item, and then pause every time you want to use a different item. This includes things like the power bracelet to lift heavy objects, or Rock's Feather in order to jump. In the Switch version of this game, you have a lot more buttons to use, and so a lot of this is fixed. Even the power bracelet, I think, is just always equipped no matter what. But in this one, if you even touch an object that you could normally lift, even if you have the power bracelet, Link will say like, this object's way too heavy for me to lift, and you have to pause, go to your menu, go to the power bracelet, unpause, lift the boulder, and throw it. And so it can be a little tedious, but after a couple hours of playing this game, you do get used to that whole pause and switching things. Especially if you've been playing a lot of Mega Man like I have, you're pretty used to pausing to change your abilities. As far as like the dungeon puzzles, they are fairly simple. Usually, just like in the original Legend of Zelda, it's like move a block or defeat all the enemies in the room in order to reveal a key or a staircase. They aren't too complicated, but the puzzle element comes more in like the overall dungeon map and how to navigate around and what you need to do in order to progress into future rooms. And that's the same for the overworld. Both of these elements can feature maze-like structures, and it is really interesting and fascinating to see how all of these pathways are interconnected. And it is especially like a treat in the overworld. If you ever played a Zelda game, it's like this, where when you unlock a new item in a dungeon, then you go into the overworld and you're, oh, now I can have a shortcut back to this way, or now I can access this item, or, you know, it always opens up so many more possibilities when you finally do unlock that item in the dungeon. And it's always so exciting in the dungeon because you'll encounter all of these obstacles that you can't progress through, and then you finally get that item, and suddenly like the whole dungeon opens up, and it's very exciting. Now, I'm not sure if any other Zelda game has this feature. I can't remember any off of the top of my head, but you need to find a special key in order to access the dungeon. So let's just say I think it's called like the face dungeon. In order to access this face dungeon, you'll also need to find the face dungeon key somewhere hidden in the overworld. I don't think there's any other Zelda game that needs a key in order to access the dungeon itself. So you're going to be spending a lot of time in the overworld looking for these keys. There's also hidden seashells hidden throughout the overworld, and if you gather up enough of these seashells, then you will get access to a stronger sword. Sometimes you get little friends that follow you, and they can help you access the next part in the overworld, and I really enjoy these elements. One time you have like a ghost following you. One time you have one of the main characters known as Marin following you. There's even a part where you have a chain chomp following you, and the chain chomp will automatically attack enemies and eat them for you, and clear up obstacles in order for you to progress to the next dungeon. And that's another thing that I really like about this game, is there's just a lot more fluidness to it, a lot more looseness to it, and you'll find out later because of the implications of the plot of this game, but they had a lot more freedom with it. Most of the time whenever you play like a Zelda game, it is very solemn and stern and only like Legend of Zelda characters, but in this one there's a lot of references to other Nintendo properties, like the chain chomp that I mentioned. In one of the dungeons you encounter this blobby looking character that looks kind of like Kirby, and he'll start inhaling you. There's a Yoshi doll, there's a picture of Princess Peach, lots of Mario references. I don't think there's any Metroid references or anything like that. It seems to be mostly Mario, but still it's fun to have that kind of crossover in Nintendo games. There's also sort of like a irreverence to the whole thing. Like the bosses will actually talk to you and taunt you and yeah, you can't hurt me kind of thing. Whereas I just feel like a lot of the other Zelda games are just take themselves so seriously, and I like that they had fun with this one. You know, it is annoying that every time you encounter an object, it goes through this whole spiel about what the object is. I don't know why Skyward Sword got so much flack for this. Whenever you got an item, it would say a quick description of what the item is. When this Link's Awakening, no one ever complains about this in Link's Awakening, but every time you encounter like a 20 rupee, it'll say like, wow, you got a 20 rupee, nice. Or anytime you get the map of the dungeon, it's like, wow, you finally got the map of the dungeon. This allows you to see all the rooms. Or wow, you got a compass. This will allow you to see where all the chests are. And it's like every time you get it, it will go through that whole spiel. I just love playing old games like this, especially like this big, open, interconnected world like Zelda, shrunk down into a minuscule file size for the Game Boy. I just think that the original Game Boy games just have a certain level of charm to see what the creators can manage to create with such limited hardware. And I just feel like this game just feels like a AAA game, but it's like compressed into this small bite-sized cartridge, and it is just so crazy, the creativeness that is involved here to create this huge open world game. I have to talk about the music because I think that the music in this game is just so iconic, and it just hits me in a certain place in my memories that makes me so nostalgic. And a lot of this music is really catchy even today. I love like the Animal Village theme. I love the Telltale Heights theme. Even, I mean, I'd be remiss to not mention the Ballad of the Windfish. This is the song that you play to wake up the windfish, especially when you gather up like all the instruments and get to hear them all play in unison together to wake up this windfish. There's a certain level of like mysticism about it. I just absolutely love this soundtrack, but that's nothing new to a Zelda game. Now, obviously, this is the cream of the crop when you do pick up this Legend of Zelda Game & Watch game. I don't know anyone who would rather play the original Zelda or Zelda 2 over this game, because this is the star of the show right here. If you can't tell, this is one of my favorite games, and I would have to give this game a 5 out of 5 because there's just such a replayability to it. Even if I am playing objectively the worst version of this game, I still think it holds up even by today's standard. I will admit, even though I have played this twice before, there were a couple times where I got stuck and maybe a little frustrated, like not really sure where to go. There's a little telephone booth that you can call an in-game character about where to go, but even his hints can be a little obscure. So yeah, I did have to look up a couple of these things because I would get stuck, but other than that, I totally think think that this game is super replayable and definitely holds up. Oh, and I really do like this whole continuous trading quest that you do, where you might pick up a stick and then you use that stick to knock down a beehive to get honey, and then you trade that honey to a chef to get some hibiscus, and then you trade that hibiscus to get a fishing hook, and it's just like this constant trading quest that you trade up in order to get a boomerang. And the boomerang is pretty helpful, but I just feel like I kind of wish that there was something a little more exciting, because there are so many projectile weapons already that the boomerang seems a little redundant. However, the boomerang's cool because it paralyzes enemies, you can pick them up and then throw them at their other enemies, which is always fun. And I feel like I've played a lot of games since having played this game that took inspiration from that constant trading up quest that you play through in this one. I'm sorry, usually after I give a score, I tend to wrap these casual reviews up. There's just so much more that I want to talk about. I should have saved the score for later, but that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening or The Legend of Zelda in general. Did you pick up this Zelda Game & Watch? I really do love these Game & Watches. I think they're fun little devices, and I hope that the Kirby one is coming up soon, because I think a Kirby one would look really nice next to my Legend of Zelda and my Super Mario ones. I'll talk to you later. Bye!